How are we doing, Lieutenant Montgomery?
Not too bad. How are you?
Oh, so far so good. No promises though. I'd like to call to order the Police Accountability Board special meeting on Friday, September 30th, 1 p.m. The public advisory reads as this. This meeting will be conducted exclusively through video conference and teleconference. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E and the state declared emergency, this meeting will be conducted exclusively through teleconference and Zoom video conference. The COVID-19 state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person and presents imminent risk to health of the attendees. Therefore, no physical meeting location will be available. To access the meeting remotely, join from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device using the URL provided. If you do not wish for your name to appear on the screen, use the drop-down menu and click on Rename to rename yourself to be anonymous. To request to speak, use the raise hand icon on the screen. To join by phone, dial 1-669-900-6833 and enter meeting ID 822-3790-2987. If you wish to comment during the public comment portion of the agenda, press *9 and wait to be recognized. And now can we proceed with roll call?
Of course. Board Member Moore?
Here.
Board Member Meisel?
Here.
Okay. Board Member Calavita?
Here.
Board Member Regina Harris? Board Member Julie Leftwich?
Here.
Board Member Levine, who will be joining us later. Board Member Owens?
Here.
Board Member Ismail Ramsey? Okay, and I see Lieutenant Dan Montgomery. Okay.
We also have City Attorney's Office, James Chang is present.
Yes, and Farima Brown, the city attorney, will be joining momentarily as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Mhm.
So if we can move to the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Excellent. So to public comment.
At this time, we have 3 attendees in the webinar. Does anybody have any public comment? If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. At this moment, I don't see any raised hands.
All right, now let's move on to new business and start this discussion of the creation for the subcommittee that was requested by the city manager's office for the interview process starting on October 6th. I want to just provide some brief comments about the impaneling of this subcommittee and just where I believe we are in the process, and hopefully we can gain some clarity and see if this is something that we want to impanel and create for this interview process on the 6th. So that's kind of where I wanted to start the discussion. We were given the task, Vice Chair Mizell was given the task to impanel a subcommittee for the last 3 finalists for the position. And what we need to decide is if that's something we want to do, how do we report back to the committee? And if we do impanel this subcommittee, do they have, how do we want to express our recommendation as a board? So that's where I'd like to start the discussion. Any thoughts? Do you guys think we should?
Chair, I think that we should. In panel with subcommittee. I think that it is very disappointing that we didn't learn until Wednesday that we needed to do so, which meant that we had to hurry up and, I mean, to follow the Brown Act, it meant that we had to hurry up and have a special meeting. So here we are. I think, I mean, I don't know what happened. Maybe we can hear from city staff. But certainly, you know, the charter amendment is very clear that we are to be consulted from the beginning of this process through the evaluation period. And so that didn't happen. And I think somebody noticed the lapse at a late moment. And so we have to have this special meeting. As for, I mean, assuming that everybody agrees that we should have a subcommittee as part of a panel to, or as a separate panel to interview the candidates for chief. I suppose we would also at this meeting authorize that subcommittee to speak for us. That's all.
Thank you. Vice Chair Mizell?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think that the process, you know, there's a number of questions. You know, it doesn't appear that we have anyone from the city manager's office here today. That is disappointing to me. I understand the short timeline, but we are also under a very short timeline and we have to operate under the Brown Act. They do not. You know, obviously I've worked, you know, with the city manager. I've worked with the city manager, Tanya Bello, very productively on without being able to ask them questions is kind of difficult. You know, I guess I would ask the city attorney, you know, if the board were to assert that we were not properly consulted in this process as required by the charter, you know, is that something your office could support, or at least in terms of an analysis of that? You know, I think the turnaround time clearly shows that we weren't properly consulted. I think Board Member Calavita, who's illuminated in the past, and I'm sure can again, that the process that was supposed to happen did not take place in regards to this. And certainly an email to a single member of the board to initiate an interview process. It's not consulting the board on the process. So I guess I wonder where your office may stand in an analysis of that question and whether the charter was properly respected.
So thank you, Mr. Mizell, and thank you, members of the PAB. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to be here today. We are not the holder of that recruitment, so I just want to be very clear at the outset that we want to be supportive and provide as much support and information as we can. But we are not the department that is running that recruitment, and we don't have the full knowledge of what was done or wasn't done. I think it's appropriate for you to get that information from the city manager's office. And I was under the impression that maybe a report was being issued to you.
We were supposed to get a report from the city manager's office and from the Human Resource Office. I have not received either.
Okay. But in terms of
their participation, just to be clear for the board, in lieu of their participation today, they were supposed to provide reports on the process and where we are and how we got here. And I want to thank the city's attorney's office for the support and for coming to this meeting and hoping to provide a little bit of clarity in an issue that isn't yours. So thank you for the representation.
Absolutely.
Board Member Leftwich, can I go to you real quick?
Oh, sure. I was just going to say that I agree with the comments made by my fellow board members. It's disappointing that no one's here from the city manager's office And that seems to be a pattern of the PAB not being consulted as it should be in these important decisions. I think we should form a subcommittee, and I'd be happy to serve on that if that's what we decide to do.
Thank you, board member.
I do want to know that literally just a few minutes ago, we received the report on behalf from Latanya Billow, which I'm working on trying to circulate that with everyone. Just checking in with Maritza in terms of what the best way to do that would be. Just so that that's on everyone's radar.
Board member Calavita, do you have something else to add?
Oh, no, actually, my hand was up from before, but I do want to ask the question. We don't have any idea whether our panel would be a separate independent panel or whether we would be asked to join an existing panel. And connected to that, how many board members might be allowed? So
From our limited correspondence, they're asking for us to impanel a subcommittee of 2 to 3 board members. And they're asking for the chair and vice chair and for us to add ideally additional. However, let me be clear, no one can tell us to impanel a subcommittee or how many number people can be on it. So we still have that discretion as a board, and I think we should exercise it in any way that we see fit.
So Chair, I'm sorry, so we would be a separate panel or we would be joining?
I asked for that format. I have asked them what the format it is, and I'm not sure as to yet.
Okay, thank you.
Board member Levine, and then City Attorney Brown, is your hand up? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may add maybe a point of clarification, just from a procedural perspective, if you have a subcommittee that's in panel, if you're trying to go for flexibility and have a subcommittee that gets impaneled and can start right away and work on this issue, under the Brown Act, you have the ability to have an ad hoc subcommittee that is not required to meet in public and have all those noticing processes and procedures. And I believe you do have other ad hoc subcommittees that you have impaneled. So I just wanted you to be aware of that option.
Thank you.
And that would be less than a quorum. So 4.
Thank you. Board member Levine?
Yes, thank you. And I apologize. It was difficult getting here where I am.
To see you. Thank you for coming.
Oh, well, thank you all. So, and I missed something, so just cut me off if I'm repetitive, but this interview process is next Thursday. And so I want to make sure that we do have 3 people. That's been permitted, whatever the format. And those 3 people should be also part of a subcommittee to discuss the communication up until Thursday. It's pretty clear the city manager, and I got a copy of what you're referring to, Chair Moore, which is from the city manager's office. I think Jose, you forwarded it. So it's clear to me they're going to move forward on that Thursday. There was a comment which I was slightly offended by, which is, well, we can't come to your meeting today because it's such short notice. Well, heaven forbid, here we are. I'm in Reading, by the way. I got up, at the crack of dawn so I could get here to a place where I could be on this meeting on Zoom. So I didn't buy that. Anyway, so I just want to make sure that we have the 3 people, that we have a subcommittee so that those minimal, at least 3 people, 3 board members can confer and plan between now and Thursday, because I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell that we're getting that thing postponed. So that's my proposal. And I, I don't know the niceties. Should I make it like a motion? But I want to make sure we have 3.
Well, do you want to make a motion and we can
Yeah, can I ask, because maybe you already talked about it, but are you and Vice Chair myself committed to doing this on Thursday?
Well, we wanted to read the report, which I'm not going to, try and do in real time here, but I wanted
Yeah,
to
sure.
get the information before this meeting in order to make a reasonable decision on, what our steps moving forward would be. So I feel like, we're a little hampered in our decision making, that we aren't going to have all the information we need, and
Well,
that
that's right.
yeah, the date is set. So
But,
go ahead.
well,
please.
from our experience, you and I were on the director search, and we pressed hard to get the resumes and as much of the interview pre-panel interview information as we could. And we got it like, I think at 8:30 p.m. the night before, could stay up late to read all the pages, signed confidentiality agreements, et cetera, et cetera. It's not clear that this is similar or slightly different because everything blew up in that director search. So I assume that's the potential for this. But at a minimum, I'd like to get what we got, the resumes, the names, so that we can get a jump start. I don't want to go in and start talking to Joe Blow, who I've never seen anything and know anything about, and then have the city manager claim, well, you did get to participate, as they have with regard to board member Calavita in some historic meeting that happened months and months or years ago.
Right.
So I guess I would like to make a motion to see if we can cobble three together to be on the panel Thursday, and then either have a second motion no, let's just make it one and create a subcommittee for planning between now and then. And I'm open to friendly edits or additions to kind of make it as succinct and clear as possible.
Okay. Vice Chair Mizell, before we take up that motion, is there something you wanted to add?
Yes, I'm of multiple, minds and thoughts on this. I've read over this report, which is really a short 2-page summary. I think we could all read it right now. And again, it lists the events that happened. And I mean, again, is it true that board member Calavita was on a hiring subcommittee a long time ago that had very little overall say so? I guess that's true. Is that consulting the board? Obviously I'll let board member Calavita speak more to that. Is in a couple in-person interviews with maybe a couple members consulting the board? I don't know. I don't feel like this report tells me that. And it doesn't describe, either the civil service procedures and why or why not things can happen. A big issue I had with the director interviews was obviously the questions were prescribed beforehand. You get them maybe the day before or like the night before. And then the process of how we would recommend was very much prescribed once we got there. And that severely limited how much any input I gave would matter if the process is simply basically yes or no. That's not really an analysis and doesn't really give, I believe members of that panel a proper opportunity. And if there's a legal reason for that, I'd love to know it. And again, the city attorney could help with that, but since the city manager's office is not here, and we don't have the HR director either, or anyone who can actually explain that part of the city's rules, I'm not personally inclined myself, and again, I understand board members disagree with me, I'm not inclined to impanel anybody. I'm more inclined to say, we're not going to impanel anybody for Thursday. You could try to go forward with no members of the PAB. We were very clear at our last meeting. We needed more specifics and answers on this. we have to hold this special meeting because again, we are bound by the Brown Act and rules, which city employees are not saying they're not very busy. We understand that, but someone could have been here. And why are we again, from the emails I received from a member of the city manager's office, I think I unintentionally set this Thursday time because I said that's what worked best for me. But considering there was a conversation, whether it was Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, I'm not, and if there's a reason that it has to be next week, we also don't know why it has to be next week, and could it be a week later?
Information.
Well, my thing is, I don't want us to feel anybody then. I think the charter has been walked over and over and over. I think we know for a fact there are parts of the charter which have not been properly enforced in this city. And I don't understand how we could hold a special meeting for that very topic and not have any real answers to those very important questions and feel comfortable in paneling someone for a panel, which will then be presumably controlled by a process of the city manager, which wouldn't have been described to us beforehand. For me, and again, I want to acknowledge, I agreed initially for the Thursday time. I did not, at the time I responded to the email, quickly think of all the implications, but I certainly did not think I was speaking for the board at the time. So in any case, I don't know. I don't think we should impanel anybody. I think we should push for an actual response. And if the city is going to say we're simply going to move forward and say that we consulted and are going to directly ignore the board on this, then that will say something. That will certainly say something about how things operate. And if they stop and we can have a proper conversation and at least get these basic questions answered, I think that's more appropriate for respecting the charter. I think that's more appropriate in terms of how we consider these candidates. And again, we don't have, I understand fully, we don't have audit power in this process. We don't hire the chief. That decision will be left to council. We understand that, we respect that. But we're supposed to have an important role, and we should at least have these questions answered before going forward. That's where I stand on it, and I'm happy to hear what board members think.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Board Member Owens.
I just want some clarification, just in looking at this document. They said, it says September 22nd that Vice Chair Mizell participated in a panel. Is that true?
I was not at that panel, but I was invited to that panel, yes.
Okay.
Board Member Leftwich.
Can I ask a quick question? When did they invite you to that panel?
I can get you answer a couple minutes here.
Okay, while you dig that out, let's board Member Leftwich.
Well, I have not read the memo, and to me, that's pretty significant if Board Member Mizell was invited and didn't attend. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. But as far as whether or not we should impanel a subcommittee, I do think it's disappointing, as I've said, that the process hasn't been followed appropriately. But if we are not able to have the interview process continued, I think we should participate, make our views known, but I don't think it really serves us just to say, well, we're not going to participate, because they will just say, well, you were invited. So although I understand the position, I would say we should go forward unless we can get it continued.
Board Member Levine.
Yeah, it's going to come across as, well, they didn't come. And so we just proceeded without them. So that's why I think it's absolutely imperative to send the maximum number from the PAB, as flawed as it is. We're never going to find out more. They're stonewalling us. That's why they're not at this meeting.
Board Member Mizell.
Yeah, and I don't know the perfect policy for this. I really don't. I don't strongly disagree with Board Member Levine or Board Member Leftwich. I just think there has to come a point where I feel like we decide that we're not just going to go with the flow with the process. And I understand there are risks with that. They could just decide to go forward without us. I do think the city council would find that very interesting that the Police Accountability Board was not involved in the interview process for the chief of police. I do think the public would find it very interesting as to why we were not involved in that process. And I don't think the old, well, they were invited and didn't participate will fly. I mean, simply the report we have today is a recounting of facts, which is cool, but it doesn't answer any substantive question about what the process is, why the process has to be a certain way, which let's say it's a legally binding thing the city has to do, then describe to us why the process is that way. And if we don't have those basic questions answered, I will go with whatever the board decides. And if we decide to go forward, I'll be happy to be at that panel. But I have to tell you, like after the director, and the charter gives us less of a direct role with the director search and the selection. I was very concerned about how that process was run. And by the time I was in the meeting, there was nothing I could do. And I feel we will shoehorn ourselves very much into the same situation if we send folks to be impaneled for this at a process which was not previously described to us, which we were not able to ask basic questions about why it's run this way. We were not able to give input about how we would change the process if we could. I feel like we're in a bind that we shouldn't be. I think it would be easily, or not easily, but at least could be resolved by having someone speak to those issues. And I think obviously Chair Moore and staff for doing all they could to make that happen. But again, they could go past us, but my inclination is that, again, and I certainly do not speak for council or anyone, but my inclination is this is something they care about. This is something they are going to have questions for. And I believe, frankly, in our individual capacities, we should advocate for, because, I don't see how it's a consult, how are you consulting with us if you haven't even described the process? I think that's just a basic question. How are we consulting together on something where you know the whole process and we know nothing of the process? And if we're expected to know the process, you haven't explained it to us. So, I struggle with that dichotomy. I don't think, from my knowledge of what the process has been so far, again, I've been emailed the invite. It looks like I was invited to that panel on September 7th. I did not attend because of a medical reason. But that was primarily a community panel, and also had other members of the union and of the city staff. And I understood that panel to be separate from whatever we were going to do, which again, I figured would be communicated to us in some formal way. I realize there's been a lot of obviously changes in the office recently, so it's reasonable that may not have happened. But we're clearly at the stage where it should happen. We asked specifically for it to happen, and the response has been very little so far. So I have strong concerns, and I'll leave it here, about whether impaneling a subcommittee, and this is something I thought about last night. I think my opinion's kind of shifted on it, is really honoring what the charter requires from us, and most specifically what it requires from the city. I believe you're muted, Chair.
Thank you. I was trying to say Board Member Calavita and then Board Member Owens, please.
Yeah. Well, I believe we should impanel a subcommittee. This, at least for our part, would be following the charter amendment. And I also think that we should send a very strong letter of disapproval as to how this process has taken place. But, we are willing to participate in this panel as the charter amendment requires. Let me just also say, yes, I was way back when a member of a community steering committee, as this document that was just circulated says. Several people on that steering committee, we met a few times. I don't think we met for the last, 6 or 8 months. I don't know how long it's been. First of all, it was a community steering committee, and I complained more than once, maybe more than twice. I complained that actually the PAB was supposed to participate from the beginning. The charter amendment says the PAB shall be consulted on job requirements and the application process. So it's now they would like to be following the charter by involving us in the interview process. Better late than never, but it did not follow the earlier requirement for us to be involved in the job requirements and application process. And I pointed that out 2 or 3 times at these meetings, and they they told me that that would happen later on. So I guess this is the later on. Anyway, for a few months after we didn't have meetings, I kept emailing and calling HR and people in charge of this hiring, and never got the courtesy of a response. So here we are. But I do believe that we should have this panel joined with a strong letter pointing out that the charter amendment on this issue has been violated.
Thank you, Board Member Calavita. Board Member Owens.
Sorry, did you call me?
I did.
Sorry.
So
I got a couple of comments. We don't know what our former director's role was in this. We don't know if they reached out to her. We have no idea if there was some contact with the former director. So that may be part of the issue. The second thing is, if Board Member Calavita was aware of the fact that they had a community group and they were talking about it, I appreciate the fact that she brought it up in the group that the board should be a part of that process. But it seemed to me that that would have been something that would have been agendized, and we could have had discussions with it at our board meetings, and then we could have been upfront, ahead of this thing. So, I myself personally had no idea that they even had this community group. So I think if we would have been informed at the PAB level, that would have been helpful. The third thing I have to say, if Vice Chair Mizell was made aware on September 7th, we had a meeting on September 14th. There was nothing said then that he had been approached about being part of an interview panel at that point. So here we are at a special meeting that we may not have had to have, because we could have discussed this at the board meeting this past Wednesday. So I think there's some timing things that may have, could have been minimized, either through Board Member Calavita bringing it to the board, agendizing it, Vice Chair Mizell coming to the board, agendizing it, or bringing it up during the board meeting. We did have on our agenda board member updates or whatever that could have been brought up at the September 14th meeting. So I think, some of this, trust me, I agree with everybody on this, that clearly the charter wasn't followed. Clearly, it looks like we should have been part of this process from the very beginning. I understand everybody's frustration. I agree with 100%. But I do think that there are some board members that also could have at least given us some clue of what was going on, and the board could have pushed for something a little bit earlier. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Could I just quickly respond? Because I did at the time report on this to the board, and I'm sorry that I didn't make a bigger issue of it. Maybe I should have, but they assured me left, right, and center that we would be fully involved at a later moment. And then, of course, we've been overwhelmed. But let me just say that, I did talk about it at the board level.
Thank you, Board Member Calavita. Board Member Levine and Board Member Mizell, and I'll follow up with a few comments.
Yeah, so I agree that, this is all work in progress and we can always find fault or a little failing on one side or the other. I distinctly remember Board Member Calavita bringing up at each of these times that we reported about subcommittees or board member reports. There were two different sections in the agenda usually. That she had been calling and hadn't gotten any further information. She really had no updates. She hadn't heard anything. It resembles the kind of report I gave on the director's search subcommittee, which is, everything up to the final communique from LaTanya Bello that said, we're no longer a part of it. The city council, it's in the hands of the city council. So I think I'd ask for a vote on this proposal. I think, and just one other thing about former interim director Lee, when Board Member Calavita brought these things up, talking about the police chief search, had she known anything, I'm pretty confident she would have said something. So I don't think that there was anything amiss in her performance of her duties there. But, it's all work in progress and we're doing the best we can. I think everything that's being said is correct, but the appropriate approach is to show up all three and to create a subcommittee that includes those people. And so that's my motion. I'd call for a vote on it if we can now.
Well, we need a second, correct?
Yeah.
And then,
I second.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mhm.
please.
The memo says that the chair and the vice chair are going to be part of the interview panel. Is that right?
Well, that's what they told us they wanted. We were informed of that. So that's why I'm saying we in panel, the subcommittee, they don't tell us. It was their calendar said, hey, you and Nathan are going to be the two members and we're glad to have you and thank you. And we didn't say that, we didn't discuss that. It was kind of imposed upon us. So that's why we're bringing it back here saying, hey, do you want him in panel subcommittee? That's the power of the board and only the board to do. And how many members of that subcommittee do we want to have? And while I have everyone's attention, I know we're almost in the middle of putting together a vote. I want to also let you guys know that Makai Freeman, who's running for District 1, she was also a member of the steering committee. She has sent out a letter to the city talking about that she has also been detached from the steering committee and she needs to be informed and she feels disengaged from the process. She's looking from an update from the city and she has sent this out to her constituents. So we are not alone. Members of the steering committee are also raising these same concerns. And I just wanted you guys to be aware of that in real time. So we've gotten a second here. And is there any friendly amendments or anything we need to add before we do this vote?
Well, I think I need to respond to Board Member Owens here. Yeah, in a total vacuum, it is true that if I had run to our very limited office staff on September 7th, just Maritza at I guess 4 p.m. that day, assuming I had read the email immediately, I could have agendized the topic for the next meeting. That's not what happened in reality. I didn't see the email on September 7th. That is when it was sent to me. To be clear, the email came, and I'm happy to forward all of this to the board, of course. It came from Avery Associates, so the firm that the city manager has hired. CC'd on it is the deputy city manager and other employees of the city manager's office. And then when I responded was on September 16th, which was a separate email that came from the city manager's staff trying to schedule the meeting. So that was actually after the 14th date. In any case, and all of those emails changed, the folks who knew at every step of the process what was happening was the city manager. And the charter clearly puts the responsibility of consulting on the city manager. I don't know how it would be any individual board member's responsibility to ensure the charter is being enforced in this city. Now, I feel I've done my fair share in many aspects to try to actually enforce the charter in this city, to try to protect police accountability in this city. And the idea that it should be the burden of members, even when the charter requires that the city manager consult with us to agendize and hope that they attend the meeting, which I could have agendized and they may or may not have attended that anyways. I don't see the connection there. I think it's very clear the responsibility lies with the city manager's office in this matter. They're the ones who oversee the entire hiring process. They're the ones who oversee human resources. They're the ones with the resources and the individuals with the information. All of that lies with them. Now, there may have been some honest miscommunication somewhere in the process. I get we're getting ready to vote. I won't grandstand forever, but I have to tell folks that, there is a point where the board, only staff on the board was Maritza. That was not very long ago. And the number of issues coming basically to me to try to parse over were enormous. Frankly, because there's no director, there was no investigator, there was no analyst, there was only Maritza, who was doing tons of hard work, and me in terms of the leadership, because obviously Chair Chang had stepped away. So, and the folks who knew of those factors, now I'll leave it here, were the city manager. It wasn't a secret in the city that we were understaffed, severely understaffed. It wasn't a secret in the city that we could use support. And it's certainly not a secret that in the charter, it requires the city manager to consult with us. So the effort should have been made. And it should have been made, frankly, as the charter requires, months and months and months and months and months ago. So we could have properly consulted in the process of the application and the process of how the interviews would look. And we wouldn't have to have a special meeting now. That falls with the city and specifically with the city manager. It does not fall with us as members. And if the city, if the responsibilities of a board member change in some substantive way that grants me a lot more power, I would be happy to compel folks to show up to meetings months ahead of time and follow the charter, but that's not the powers we have. We have the power to talk at these meetings, agendize things, pass things over, and do our very best to enforce these things. But ultimately, the power lies with other people, and the responsibility, and I'll leave it here, the responsibility lies with the city manager's office in this question. They are supposed to consult with us. That is where the failure happened, not because I didn't rush to bring what was clearly a community panel. I'm the only PAB person even CC'd on the email of over 15 people. The responsibility lies with the city. I'll leave it there.
Board Member Owens, is your hand up or are you good? Because I'm
gonna make one more comment. I'm still going to say that as vice chair, Vice Chair Mizell should have known to agendize it for our September 28th meeting, which was a couple days ago. We could have had that discussion then with the full board. I fully agree that yes, it's the city manager's responsibility to consult with the board. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, I realize there were not very many people in the office, but Maritza was putting together agendas. Maritza, when I contacted her and put something on agenda or remove it, she was able to do it. So I believe that the vice chair could have agendized this on a September 28th meeting. We could have had the full board there and had this discussion, but we're where we are.
we're where we are, and let's move on from here. We know what our hindsight. We know what went wrong. We'll be able to develop how we can move forward from this. Jose, can you read over Board Member Levine's language real quick, and we can see if we can get a vote together?
You're muted.
Thank you for the reminder. I don't have the exact language. I'm not sure if something has been proposed in the email. I just have brief notes, and it's kind of been.
No worries. We'll talk about that later, and we'll sit down and figure that out. Board Member Levine, do you care or do you mind giving us another shot at it?
Sure. My motion, I move that we form a subcommittee and produce 3 board members to participate in the panel of interviews on next Thursday, the 6th of October, and include, and in addition, have a letter articulating essentially what Vice Chair Mizell has stated with regard to the failing of the city manager's office. So subcommittee, provide panel members, and letter to the city manager, copy whoever else is appropriate.
Okay. And I believe there was already a second, Board Member Leftwich. Is that correct?
I think it was Board Member Calavita, but if not, I'm happy to provide a second.
Excellent. All right.
I have one brief question about the motion. Would the letter be produced by the subcommittee or by Chair Moore on the board's behalf?
Well, I would, either is fine with me. I think all this is going to take time and be difficult for all of us to people this panel and subcommittee. So whichever is most efficient and possible.
In my personal opinion, I think it'd be more, it'd have more gravitas coming from the subcommittee than the new chair. I'm just saying. Personally speaking. Board Member Owens, did you care to add something?
Yeah, I honestly think it would be more beneficial for the chair to meet with the city manager and discuss directly with the city manager the role of the PAB and the lack of including the PAB and what the charter says, the role we're supposed to play. I think it would be more effective to have a one-on-one conversation with the city manager versus sending a letter. If we do decide to send a letter, I would prefer the letter come from the full board and not the subcommittee. Because if you're gonna send a letter, as far as I'm concerned, it should be the power of the board. But honestly, if the motion is a subcommittee and a letter, I'm gonna vote against it just because I don't think a letter is the appropriate thing. I think a one-on-one meeting. I definitely believe the subcommittee, so I just wanna make that.
All right, then I'll withdraw the letter portion. I think the most important thing is to get panel members. So.
Okay, so we are going to revise the motion. Is that, Jose, is that what we're doing here? I hope my Robert's rules is cool. All right, great. So we're gonna do that revision. And at the same time, what would I like to add? Or at least I'd like to discuss with the board. We said 3 in the motion. Is there an argument against 4 board members being we're allowed to have 4, according to the city attorney's office and me paying attention. So if we're allowed to have 4, I think that would be something. I'm going to ask if we have, board members who will, raise a hand and volunteer, but I would just want.
That's not part of the motion though,
Well,
right?
I
So
just wanna
maybe we
keep that
should
option.
bifurcate the discussion and just vote on.
That's great, but the motion had 3 in there, so I just wanted to take the language out.
Oh, did it? Okay, I agree then. I don't think we should specify.
Okay, great. Right. And Vice Chair Mizell?
Yeah, so as the motion stands, just one form. I will likely vote against it, just on principle. I am happy to serve on the panel. I understand obviously the importance. But yeah, I'll likely vote against. I think we should write a letter. I received no communications from the city manager or deputy city manager from, I guess, any time. Everything's come from, assistants and other folks who are very obviously invaluable to the office, but the communication that should have happened never happened. I think we should just write the letter now, frankly, and have it on the record. But I respect the other position as well. But again, the opportunity for them to talk to me while I was acting chair was there. I know for a fact some of them have my number and know exactly who I am because I worked with the deputy city manager, and that never came. So yeah, I will vote against.
Chair,
Yes, Board Member Calvita.
I just got a text from Board Member Levine, and her battery has died at the spot where she had. That's why she's dropped off of this. So I don't know if she's going to be able to get back on, but her cell phone died or something.
Of course. Story of my life right there. That is, will we still have quorum without Board Member Levine? Yes. Correct? 5 of us. Yes. Okay, so we still have quorum. It's going to make this vote a little more murky, but that's why we take the votes. So are we ready to do this, Jose?
Unmute myself first. So the language that I currently have is the motion to form a subcommittee for the discussion of the October 6th police chief elections.
This meeting is being recorded.
Great, thank you.
Excellent.
I'm back, it was a power cord battery problem.
Well, I'm glad you're back. That's excellent.
Sorry.
Jose, the motion was to form a subcommittee
Mhm.
to impanel a subcommittee for the purpose of interviewing candidates for the chief of police on October 6th.
Yes.
Okay, one moment.
Okay.
Okay. So I made that correction. So motion to impanel a subcommittee for the purpose of the interviews for the police chief candidate on October 6th.
Perfect.
Okay. So I am ready. And will we be doing a roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll start just with the members present, given that board member Regina Harris and Ismail Ramsey are not here. I will not mention them on this list. So I'll start with board member Moore,
Yes.
board member Mizell,
No.
board member Calavita,
Yes,
board member Leftwich,
Yes,
board member Levine,
Yes.
board member Owens.
Yes.
So I have 5 yeses and 1 no.
The motion carries. We have agreed to impanel a subcommittee. At this moment, I'd like to ask if there are any volunteers for the subcommittee. Board Member Leftwich, I see that you have Board Member Mizell, Board Member Leftwich.
Where's board member Owens?
She's right there.
she's there.
Well, I can't see her, but are you willing to do this 2, Board Member Owens?
I'm not available next Thursday afternoon.
What about in the lead up to it?
What do you mean in the lead up to it?
Well, there's going to be a subcommittee, and if we don't have 3, the subcommittee might want to enlist other board members who couldn't be at this meeting and maybe formulate some of the preparation.
Are
Well,
you unavailable, Board Member Levine?
I'll make myself available.
excellent.
I'm supposed to be on vacation, but I'm going to make myself available like
Excellent.
this. I'll be somewhere.
So that would actually be 4 volunteers because I have also raised my hand.
Oh,
So
good.
the subcommittee would be Board Member Leftwich, Board Member Levine, Board Member Mizell, and Chair Moore.
Could I confirm that Board Member Mizell is willing to do it even though he disagrees?
I saw his hand up.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
Too late, too late.
it's a process issue.
I understand. I understand. Okay, so we have sorted that, and that's taken care of, which brings us just to what we've already covered here in our agenda. We didn't mean to, but we got there anyway, and that is the process elements of this. Oh, go ahead, Board Member Levine.
Well, I would suggest before we close up or seek public comment that we maybe informally come up with a date to meet so that we can chat about who's going to go and what preparations need to be made.
I
Could
think,
we do that via email?
yeah,
Okay.
I agree we should do that.
Yeah, fine. Never mind. That's better.
just so we can just close this out. I wanted to,
Yeah, thank you.
not a problem, but
Can
I
I-
wanted,
Can I make a suggestion that perhaps through Jose, you guys can talk about calendaring so that there's no Brown Act issue?
I thought because we're an ad hoc, there isn't a Brown Act issue.
It's a good point. Yes, you're not subject. Just the 4 people
Okay.
are going to be
Yes.
exchanging
Yeah, just the
information?
4 of us.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
okay, so,
Could I also, Chair, I'm sorry, I'm hoping that all 4 of you will go to the interview. I heard something about discussing who would go, but I think that you should all go.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay. Okay.
okay, so this was my, moving on, and this was our final point before we open up for public comment. I wanted,
Chair, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I
That's
have
all
a
right.
motion that is related to this.
okay,
I would make a motion to ask or strongly encourage the city manager's office or a representative to attend a meeting with the subcommittee before the interview panel. I just want that motion to formally be on the record. Yes, I understand the time constraints. We are all operating under time constraint. This board has operated under numerous time constraints.
I will second that motion myself personally.
So-
Can I do that? I think I
That's
can.
fine.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's a great idea, and we need that. We need that connection. We need to start making that bridge. So, last thing, guys, and I promise, and it won't take a lot of your time. I just wanted us to talk about the process issue here, and that we need to have a focus. And I know that the charter is, it's our guideline. It's where we need to be, our rail moving forward when we're doing our work. And, we have come across a lot of, I'd say, friction with other agencies, other organizations when it comes to trying to adhere to just what the paperwork says. And I want us as a board to be in tune with that. I've enlisted the city's attorney's office for coming in and helping us with some of those questions about, process. Where should we be in the hiring process? Where did it go wrong? How can we make sure this doesn't happen again? And I want to stress, they don't have all the answers at all. They were the last ones to the party and the only ones that showed up. And I'm not forgetting about you, Lieutenant Montgomery. I see you there. But what I'm saying is, when we needed the city manager's office, and I would have loved human resources to provide the report that was supposed to be in lieu of attendance, that would have mattered to this conversation, and honestly, to us being a real part of the process. You'll find I don't have time for us to play the games of, are we really working together? Are we not? We need a buy-in from the city, and that's kind of why I asked the city's attorney, the office, to just help us for a frame of reference. What do we do when the process isn't followed, or who do we go to? How do we make the things that we need to do actually stand up in city government? So I put a lot on their plate yesterday. They had to hear me rant and rave for 45 minutes, and I do appreciate that. But I just wanted to bring that up and say, here, board, here's our opportunity to see what we can do. The frustration level is real. This board has experienced it, and I'm trying to find a way to release that valve. So here we go. That was it. If anyone else would like to add to this conversation, I'm sure we can keep it quick, but I thought we should put it on the table. We good? I think.
Yeah, my only ask is that we vote on the motion and the second when we get there, Chair.
Yes. All right. I'm sorry about that. That was my bad processing. Jose, can we do that? Roll call vote.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
again,
what was the motion again?
It's a motion to ask that the city manager attend the meeting with the subcommittee. And please correct me if I misworded the motion.
Before the
City
October 6th.
manager, yes, our representative, before the October 6th.
Okay, so we're just missing a few words, important words.
Who is doing the asking? That's in the passive voice. So who? Do we have some clarity about who's making that request? Is it
if we
our
pass this
chair?
motion, I think the board is making the ask.
Okay.
So the motion should read that the board asks that the city manager or somebody from her office attend the meeting.
Yeah.
I'll second that, and we're waiting for a second.
I seconded it. We're just
Oh,
waiting
okay.
for roll call. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. October 6th. Thank you for your patience. Still working out on the best method to take these notes. But okay. So I'll start again only with the present members. I'll start with Chair Moore. Your vote?
Yes.
Board Member Mizell?
Yes.
Board Member Calavita?
Yes.
Okay. Board Member Leftwich?
Yes.
Board Member Levine?
Yes.
And Board Member Owens?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 6 votes yes, no nos. Okay.
Excellent. So now that that's taken care of and the business is handled, is there anything?
Chair,
Yes.
I have another motion.
Let's hear it. Let's do it.
I think that we need to make our voices heard about our disapproval of this process. That was separated from our vote to have a panel. And I agree with Board Member Moore that a conversation between the chair and the city attorney would be very effective. I don't think it rules out also sending a letter. So I think we should send a letter and perhaps CC to council But I also move that the chair meet with the city attorney to discuss this and similar issues.
I'll second that motion.
I'm sorry, did you mean city manager, board member Kelly?
I'm sorry, city manager, yes.
Oh,
Thank
good. That's what
I'm sorry. I meant the city manager, yeah.
Not a problem. I thought that's what you meant. I thought,
Okay. So just to be clear, the motion is to send a letter to the city manager to express the board's opinion on the whole process, correct?
Yes, but also because I agree with Board Member Owens that a conversation may be
Conversation.
more powerful, a meeting.
Board Member Owens, you wanted to add something?
I don't think a letter and a meeting is necessary. I think the meeting itself is fine. I think if the chair, after they meet with the city manager, wants to put together a summary of the conversation and agendize and bring it to the full board. And if after that conversation, the full board feels it's necessary to document, so you memorialize it, I'm good with that. But I think a conversation, I say sit down and have a conversation. And if it doesn't go the way you want, you bring it to the board writes a letter. That's my personal feeling.
Board Member Mizell, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I think if we move to the next if we're ready to move, I can briefly talk, but let me just wait.
Sure? All right, all right.
I wanted to say the reason that I think a letter is important as well as the conversation is that I think it's important to memorialize the issue and to raise awareness, not just with the city manager, but the council and others. So that's why I think a letter should also go out.
Thank you, Board Member Calavita. Are we ready to vote on this?
Yes.
Just want to be sure that the motion included that it would be copied to council, because I don't think that's what I heard.
Yeah, I think that's good to
From
have.
Mr. Murillo when he was.
Great addition.
I did not say that initially, but I do assure that it is written in the notes and will be included in the minutes.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So are we ready to vote?
We are.
Okay. So let me just create another section here. Okay. So start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mizell,
Yes.
Board Member Calavita,
Yes,
Board Member Leftwich,
Yes.
Board Member Levine,
Yes.
and Board Member Owens.
No.
Okay, those are 5 yeses, 1 no.
Excellent. Motion carries. Are there any other motions that are going to reach the floor before I try this one more time? Anybody? All right. So I wanted to just bring us back to the process conversation we were having. I wanted to make sure that the city attorneys knew that I was very thankful and I appreciated their presence and their support. And that was my comments. That's all I had to share. So if there's anything else from anybody else, this is the time.
Yes, I thank City Manager and DCA Chang for being here as well. I know obviously we'll be speaking more, when the memo and everything is ready to come out. So I'll avoid any substantive questions today. I think just, for board members, I understand, that obviously there was going to be growing pains in this. I think we all understood, it wasn't going to be things are on paper now and everything's going to function accordingly. But I mean, the charter is It's our constitution in this city. It is the most binding document in this city. The words that 85% of Berkeley 85% of Berkeley voters passed is the binding document on this city. And our responsibility, to me, at least at these early stages in this first year and 2 years and 3 years and probably 4 years, it has to be to ensure those words are enforced. And obviously we're not operating as attorneys in this fashion. I'm certainly not one, but I think it has to be a clear priority of us that this document is respected. It's not my document. It's not even our document. It's the document itself represents a compromise. It represents a compromise of what some board members at the time or at the commissioners may have thought. It represents a compromise of what the union may have wanted, a compromise of what the city council may have wanted. It went through meet and confer. I mean, it went through everything. And these are the words that got onto the paper. Obviously, in the ideal world, I may have liked some other powers. I'm sure the union may have preferred some other different language, but this is what's got on paper. And what's been clear so far is there have been serious issues in terms of the charter actually being a document that is followed in this city. I think that's just objectively true. And again, I don't think that's because of purposeful actions against the board or attempts to undermine it. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it really is folks are transitioning and trying to figure out where things fit. But I think we do have to push back at times and be forceful about it because, again, this language doesn't represent our opinion, doesn't represent, it's an aspirational thing for the city. It's not a roadmap. It's not a plan for the future. It is the binding document of the city. It's the document that says who the mayor is. It's the document who says who the city council is. It's the document who says who the rent board is. It's the document who says who the city manager is. It's the document that makes the basic function of the city what the city is. If we started ignoring other sections of the charter and say, well, the mayor's not the mayor anymore, city council is not, well, sometimes what they say makes sense, there wouldn't be a city of Berkeley. But when it comes to something as that should be as serious, that should be as solemn, that should be as important as police accountability, of which 85% of Berkeley voters are willing to say, yes, we want this in our city's charter, it has to be ensured. And, I was fortunate to take a lot of good classes at Berkeley, read some of the work of many great authors, including Professor Calavita. And I understand that, law is not magically enforced because it was written down. It has to be worked through. It has to be talked out. I know we're all willing to have conversations, and I'll stop grandstanding here. But, and look, maybe it's because, I may not have long here now. We'll see what happens. But I have to stress, 85% of voters in this city voted to have this in the city charter. There are not many things 85% of Berkeleyans can agree on that come to the ballot. We are a city of diversity. We're a city of a lot of different opinions. We are a city that, even with progressive values often as a background, those have to be lived out on paper. And then they have to be lived out in reality. So I'll stop there. I do really thank City Attorney for coming. I'll save substantive questions for the memo. But again, this is our constitutional document in this city. And, I think we have a responsibility to treat it as such.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other comments before we open it up to the public? All right, not seeing or hearing any, I'm going to go ahead and, do we want to go ahead, Jose, and open it up to the public for comment?
Yes, we do have one speaker, Cordell Hindler. I've been seeing their hand go up on multiple occasions throughout, it just wasn't time. So let me go ahead and set the timer up. So we can get the comment going. And I will give permission now. Okay, Cordell, we should be able to hear you.
Yes, can you hear me, Jose?
Yes.
Yes, so good afternoon, Chair Moore, board members. I am Cordell Handler and I'm a Richmond resident. So I have three things to say. So number one is, if you recall at the regular meeting, that I have voiced my concern, you know how the procedures go. Once again, I just noticed that too, because first of all, I read the standing rules procedures. It says that before the board makes votes on an item, you have to open up you have to open up for public comment on that item. I just noticed that, and I said again, not having my voice be heard is like that's I take that very seriously. That's one. And then number two is I did have some ideas, you know, like for a police chief, you want the next police chief to be, you know, a fair-minded go-around person. So I like the idea because I've looked at other cities and they they invited the community to be on the panel. So hey, it's like hearing from the community as well as the organizers of the interview panel. And number three is once again I try to come to y'all meetings, you know, occasionally, but I just feel that the public should be allowed to speak on items on the agenda. So what I'm envisioning, you know, like how to make the agendas more cohesive, you know, like if you reduce the amount of time for each item, because yet once again, I had to wait till like around 10 o'clock in the evening, like just for the second public comment to be heard. So I'm just asking if the board will, you know, be more considerate, like to hearing from the public on, because they want to speak on the items on the agenda too. So I'll just get my soapbox and leave it at that.
Thank you. And Chair, if you mind, if I respond just with the
Yeah,
wording
please.
of the standing rules, and I would like to the public comment. I agree. Public participation is key. In section F1 of the standing rules reads: "The public comment shall be agendized near the beginning and end of each meeting, each board meeting." And then at 2, it gives the option for the chair or vice chair to poll members on specific items that may have significant interest to allow comment during an item. But that is not a requirement of this body and is not so in the standing rules. Now, whether it's something we can do more often, I think that's a fair question, but I just wanted to clarify the record on that.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
And we have no further public comment.
Excellent. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's stereo. Thank you all for attending. I know this was short notice and very difficult. Darby, thank you. This is not what I thought my first meeting would be like, but I'm glad we got through it together. Thank you very much, everybody. And if there's any way that or anything that anyone might need as we go through this process, please feel free to reach out through Jose to me, or so we don't violate the Brown Act. And if there's any way directly that we can talk about issues that we need to as we build this up, I am here. So that's all. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.